I'm at Matulis, and when I first started coming here, first shout out to Josh and shout out to the Candor team. I mean, like putting on these events, being able to eat and drink food, and get couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity. But I wanted to come to these events because I started meeting people similar to myself who were just getting started. Maybe they didn't know how to get started, especially in and around the Northeast. I know it's very difficult to get in. It's very expensive for a lot of people that are first starting out. I know some of you, and what I'm going to be talking about is out-of-state investing. I know some of you, Melanie, I just met, are also out-of-state investing, maybe in multiple states, and this may be repetitive or routine, but hopefully I'm just here to, hopefully I can give you some insight into why I chose Colombia, maybe some different markets, my perspective on how to get into the deal, and/or this is really just to shed light on people who may be wanting to get in but don't know how, and/or just shed light on a different area on how to get in. So,
oh, actually,
is it upside down?
wait a minute. Sorry.
You're good.
You're gonna get your actual PowerPoint.
I take back that shout out.
No, but just a little bit about me. From South Florida originally. Was recruited to play football at UNH, where I met my beautiful girlfriend Maddie, and I've stayed in the area since. Potentially looking to get back down, which is what brought me to Columbia. I'm still working on my girlfriend about getting down there. She's from here originally, but so how I got started is at UNH. I started with an internship in my senior year, who was with a professor who was starting into out-of-state investing. He was looking in Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and all the rest. And for one of my research projects, I decided to do Columbia, South Carolina, because my brother was from there. He played football for USC, and I just thought it might be a natural fit just to do some research on it and see potentially, how the market did. Was very happy with what I found. I'm a cash flow investor. I'm not necessarily looking for crazy appreciation, nothing short term, no high hits, just looking to dollar cost average my way into the real estate market and have a way to potentially get some mailbox money and retire. So what I found was an extremely stable market. It is obvious, it's the capital, so there's a lot of government jobs with that. There's hospitals, the school, military base nearby. And something I know just from going there to watch the games and be there is it's its own little ecosystem. People don't really leave. I mean, it's getting an average influx just as most southern states are, so it's growing, but it's not the Austin, it's not the Miami, it's not some of those that some people are looking for the quick hits. The number one thing that really drove me in was, in my project, I looked at, obviously, 2008, the worst residential real estate market in the world. It was one of the only times the real estate market has dropped more than 10%. And I looked as a whole, on average, home prices dropped over 17.5%. In South Carolina, that number was only 5.72% during that same period. Do I think it's recession-proof? No, I don't. But what I'm trying to emphasize is I saw a very steady, cash flowable market that I thought I could enter. Having a brother there definitely didn't hurt. He was interested in investing at the time. He wasn't at all involved. After talking to him, I said, hey, we might really have something with Columbia. I really like what I see. Everybody, especially if you guys have started, everybody tries to say, hey, look at my market. But when I called him, he said he's interested. So he actually started to get his real estate license. And I said, hey, you'll be boots on the ground. I'll be the back end. I'll do some of the business and bird dogging a lot of the properties. And when I first heard Johnny B speak, it was about partnerships, and he mentioned that none of this would not be possible without partnerships and without the people you meet. And I would be hard pressed to find anybody that's doing this alone. Whether it's the agent, it's the title attorney, it's the property manager. If you've got somebody doing it all, I'm sure they're not doing it to the best of their capacity. I really think that having these partnerships, and especially being out of state, I have not seen any of my properties physically. I have not stepped foot inside of them. I haven't swung a hammer. So being able to have that strong team is everything. And obviously I understand having a brother there was having boots on the ground or having a connection already with some tie there, but if I had to do it differently, if I had to go into a different market, which is a very realistic possibility, I would find one of those people I mentioned on that team, what that team looks like, whether it is the title attorney, whether it is the real estate agent, find one of them through bigger pockets. Obviously, you want to find somewhere investor friendly. I think having an investor friendly agent is just about everything. They'll understand what you need to do and what needs to get done, and or the title attorney, and ask them for referrals. You know, if they're really highly regarded in their area, they'll have the names and numbers of people that they do business with that they like, and if they don't, it's probably a sign you shouldn't be doing business with them if they don't know anybody else to refer. Some of the tools I physically use, Bigger Pockets is a great resource. They have a calculator for buy and hold. They have flips. It's a great way to just sort of quickly run through it. Obviously, if you do it on the MLS, I typically do the 1% rule. If it's cash flowing more a month than it is the purchase price, it's an idea to start looking into the deal. That 1% marker is an idea to start looking into that specific property. I'll then run it through Bigger Pockets. Rental meters are great. First place to go look to see what will this house rent. Obviously, none of these are 100% accurate, but they're pretty statistically correct. I mean, within a certain error of margin. First property we entered was Slash Pine. Slash Pine, we closed in November of 2020. The purchase price was $67,000. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath house, 1,300 square feet. We also got $3,000 back in closing, and again, this was somewhat in the pandemic. It wasn't the market we're still getting, so you can get closing costs back and some of those things. But we put an additional $12,000 in it with roof, painting, some trash removal, miscellaneous, and appliances. So we put 20% down payment plus the $12,000 for renovations. We were all in at $26,000. Currently, it's renting out at $1,095, which after property taxes, insurance, $690, we're cash flowing $405 a month between the two of us, and that's around an 18.5% cash flow. It's currently empty. Was emptied at the first of this month, and we're close to getting it flipped, and we're gonna have another tenant in at the end of this month. We already got a prospective tenant, and we're looking to get $1,295 for that. And I know it's a very little nuanced thing, but some of the things I never even thought about out-of-state investing was at the close of this deal, I went to go get the things notarized. And I just moved to a new city. I didn't know anybody. It was the height of the pandemic. Nobody was welcoming people in. I know notaries are typically something you can get done for free in a library, but I couldn't find anywhere. UPS, FedEx, they were charging $13, $14 a stamp, and if you've seen one of those closings, there's 15 stamps in there. I was not about to pay an extra $100 to get something stamped. So I did all of my due diligence. I looked around and found a local law firm that their receptionist did notary services for free within a certain window. So called, said, hey, I've got a closing. I'm gonna need like 14 stamps. I know it's kind of a lot. They're like, no, you're fine. Go ahead, come in. Okay, so I go in, I bring the papers, I bring the pamphlet. I'm on the phone with the title agent in South Carolina, title attorney who's doing the closing. She's walking me through the documents, and all of a sudden the receptionist gets a little skeeved out that their firm is doing a real estate closing that they're not a part of. So she brings it back to the partners, and she's like, hey, are we allowed to do this? Is it within our legal realm? They come out, they're not too sure. They're very upset that they're a part of a closing that they have nothing to do with. My first deal, I have no idea what the hell is going on. I don't know what to speak to these partners about. And the title attorney on the phone is just, she lets them have it. She was like, look, he's just using your notary. We called, the notary was completely fine with her putting the stamps on it because there's nothing to do. It was a property in South Carolina. And they eventually backed off. They're like, we want to scan things just for our records. I said, fine, go ahead. But I say that just because I was buckwheat. I was 23. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. But just having that title attorney on the phone and going to bat for me and pushing them down, really helped. It was just a sign of good faith and having a good team.
Your bank do it for free.
I'm sorry, the bank?
The bank do it for free.
All closed. It was there in the height of the pandemic, and I couldn't.
Weren't welcoming people in there.
No, it was November of 2020, so I could not find. I just moved to a new city. I was actually in Portland at the time, Portland, Maine. But at that specific time, and I was an online bank member, so I didn't have a physical branch nearby, even so, because I was from the South originally. So when I came up here, I didn't have that. In hindsight, I can definitely look back on that. We quickly moved into the next property. This was actually in March of 2021, and We ended up doing a construction loan with our lender. It was supposedly, obviously, at the beginning it was a construction loan. They would pay for the property, allow us to roll in our construction cost into the loan, and then at the end of it, refinance into a 30-year mortgage, conventional mortgage. This is when times of I think there are lessons to be learned, and I had a general contractor, I had the team set, and I talked to them. They're like, yeah, we'll get to the property this month. I didn't check in. 2 months goes by. I said, hey, where are we at with the property? Oh, we haven't started. COVID, X, Y, and Z. So that was something that I had to make sure I got onto them, and it was definitely a lesson learned of managing the managers. I think a lot of this, you have a team and you have the team in place that can do what they need to do. The agents, they're all specialized in their field, but I think being the head investor, or being the investor in and of itself, you're a project manager, and you're taking each person from step to step to step, and more than anything, I've learned that is the skill you need to more or less have, is making sure you're just managing the managers. I didn't buy the property, I didn't do any of the title work, I didn't do any of that, but I just made sure that my team was on schedule and making sure we can go through. So we purchased it for $90K, we put about $62,000 in it, we did the roof, we did painting, we did the HVAC. So this wall right here was this picture right here. So this picture is both from the same angle. We ended up coming in and just ripping out this wall. It was a $6,000 demo, nothing too crazy, but it added to what me feels like 100 square feet of functional use, and just made it a lot more friendly for people to come in, instead of just being that closed off area that it is. So the loan terms were, for that time that it was under construction, it was a $120,000 loan for 5% interest only. So we did that for about 3 or 4 months, and then we rolled into a 6.25 over 30 years now. Actually, when we got locked into that rate, and that was another thing, we had dealt with a mortgage broker. The mortgage broker on the first deal was amazing. Loved it. Everything he did was very quick, closed. He referred us to the person who specializes in the construction loans. This gentleman had 1 foot out the door. He was on the squash court on Mondays at 2 o'clock when I was trying to call him. But I said, you know what, he'll get it done. 3 days before the closing, they said, hey, you don't qualify. Our rental income from the first one that we had thought was going to didn't somehow roll in. And so we had to scramble to then try to get into a different type of loan. We ended up pausing that, and we only got locked in. So like I said, this was March of 2021. We only ended up getting locked into a rate as of 4 months ago. And that was what was showing the 6.125% there. So, you know, it wasn't necessarily obviously the best rate. I mean, 3% on the first one is what I'm looking for, but I'll take 6.125 just because we were getting 1845. That was $17.95, $50 for a pet, but $693 a month and averaging 16.2% cash on cash return.
Question.
Yep.
That wall you bulldozed, did you
Yep.
take out a bedroom?
We did not. So this, from where the picture is taken, like right here, if there was, that would be the kitchen, and then that's the living room. So it was quite literally just that wall being removed, and that it. So that's the living room, and then this whole room is the kitchen and the dining room.
Okay, so you just made an open concept kitchen, dining area.
Yep, and that's the thing I think too is an area of opportunity for people who do invest. I think one of the quickest things to do is things like that, or adding a bedroom if they have a garage that's quickly converted, not a garage, or an extra room that's quickly converted. Those areas to find extra value that, yes, that cost me $6,000, but at the end of the day, I think I reap in rewards to what. So the house then appraised. We were all in for 152. The house then appraised for 165. So we already had a little bit of built-in equity, and I think in part to obviously the work we had done, but I think in large part to that wall. I think it just helped out a lot. We had another one where we converted an office into a room, and what I've seen from my market in Columbia specifically is the 3 1-bedrooms, 900, 1,000 maybe. The 3 1.5, you're getting 1,300. But when you can convert an extra room and get that 4th bedroom is really when you'll start to see, when you get that 4 1.5 is when you'll get $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 too. So adding a room is somewhere that I've seen a lot of value created for relatively quickly.
Normally 2 to 3 is the big jump. 3 to 4. That's surprising.
I will say it's more or less 3 and 1, like 3 1s and then 3 1.5. I'll see a little jump in between them, but from what I've seen, that fourth bedroom really adds a different dynamic.
Get a bigger family, I imagine, in that case, and it just, people will pay more.
Starting to grow, and especially during COVID, I think people were starting to look at their own homes a little bit differently and maybe expand beyond that. Because like you said, 3 1.5 is a starter family or a starter home that they had just gotten into, and maybe they need an extra room. It not pictured as a big backyard with a huge fence, so it definitely helped out in the rental.
Is this rate and term refi? Cash out at all?
Nope, rate and term. Rate and term. So it was a DSR type of construction loan, and it was the first one I had gotten into, and so it was the first experience with that. But I've got one for you next coming up. I'm also always open to questions. I'd much rather just have a conversation than typically present, so please at any time feel free. This is Boundary. This is our latest property. We found this off market. We're doing a lot of direct mail campaigns. We also bought a couple lists, so we'll have a outsourced SDR essentially calling them and trying to set up appointments. But we got this through a direct mail. He wanted to sell cash. He wanted to get out when the market was high at a point in time. So we got a hard money loan. We ended up paying, and I say we, me, and my brother, $105 for the house. We put $25 in. There wasn't terribly ton amount of work. There was a little bit of foundation work that we needed to do. We added a couple piers, and then we did flooring. We painted the cabinets, and then I think this is an area that I can also speak on. I wish I had done more with the kitchen. We were all in cash at the moment, so we were running on a shoestring budget, and I was like, just paint the cabinets. So we didn't get quite the rent we wanted to. We only ended up getting $16.95, but we had it listed at $18.95, and could have probably commandedly got that had we done a little bit of the nice touches. But we bought it for $105. We're all in $130. So it then appraised for $160. We did a cash out refi. So we only left in essentially $15. So we didn't get the full amount. I thought it was going to be the infinite burn. I could potentially get all of my money out, but to be into a 4-bedroom house for $15, I wasn't too upset. We paid $7,000 on the interest from the loan, so we were all in for $22,000. That is renting at $16.95. Mortgage, insurance, taxes included is $13.33. Cash flowing $561, and cash flow is 44%, considering that we were only in for $20,000. So this is definitely one of the areas I think I've been trying to break into, is the off-market properties. I think that's been a huge avenue, especially for everything going on. Columbia is still an area that you can find on-market properties, on realtor, cash flowing more than that 1%, but it's still something that I think gave us a little bit of an edge, getting it off-market, being able to pay cash and quickly close.
Your monthly cash flow, does that take into account expenses?
Cash flow. Yep, so it is. That's less, so $13.33. $16.95 less the $13.33.
Okay, so, like normally 10% for expenses and stuff like that. Do you account for that at all? Or, no?
Property management's 10%. Taxes, we underwrite at 1.8. South Carolina's pretty low, which is still conservative. I mean, it's at for investors, it's 1.3, 1.4, but I underwrite at 1.8. Insurance, we're obviously paying out then, and we have reserves, but I don't. Above that, we have $2,000 in reserves, which pays off the deductible for the insurance policy in case anything goes wrong. But above and beyond that, I don't typically take out any more.
We're talking about CapEx and maintenance repairs setting aside every month for that, which you could probably reduce as you just went through the whole thing.
Yeah, we bought it, flipped it, and then so we didn't have very many of those managing things to keep up with because we had just flipped it and fixed just about everything in it. Now, someone's been rented in there for 3 months, so in a month, sure, something might come up, but for that is not.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about roofing type thing. That's what gets me. I'm like, oh, it's cash flowing great, but then I have to replace the roof. I'm like,
Don't spend your cash flow.
That's very true. No, that's very true. And so, yeah, we do have a reserve to cover the insurance policy, but above and beyond that, we haven't. Worst case scenario, like I said, we already have a lot of built-in equity just from the BRRRR. So if I needed to dig into a HELOC or anything along those, I guess we could. But my hope is that because we just flipped it, we had the appraisal just done, or the inspections all just done, and there wasn't anything that was jumping out at us.
The numbers are good.
Yeah, have you been able to capture on the appreciation of the other property?
Yes, so that slash pond, like I said, it's currently vacant. We listed it because we were almost into, like you said, a forced, almost became, not a force, but it almost became a flip because we were just like head over heels. We were under contract for 125 cash. We bought 67. And during that time, we were like going to try to 1031 exchange. We had to have a like property already picked out. We didn't. The rates we were getting quoted, again, this was last month, were not favorable. So we didn't end up selling because A, I didn't want to pay capital gains tax, and B, I didn't want to get into the same market paying a higher rate. I wanted to, if that first one, like I said, is locked in at 3% for 30 years, at that point, if inflation's at 9%, I'm paying them back with funny money. I'll just,
You can refi those.
I can. So, not something we looked into it, but the rates again, especially for cash out refis, were above and beyond what the even normal rates are. So it just wasn't something that we wanted to pay at that time.
Like, sorry.
No, you're
not,
good.
Yeah, so it went up cash flow after you refi it. Is that what you're saying?
It very well may, and it did, but it just, I didn't want to pay an 8% interest rate if I was locked in at 3%. I just more or less, it was like that arbitrage I wanted to get, where it was like, if inflation's at 9%, I want to pay back a bank. And after we paid, so after the cap gains, after we paid the mortgage back off, it really was like $20K back to each of us, which again is more than we put into the deal. So yes, that's a lot, but I was then gonna have to pay more for a property because COVID hits 2 years later, interest rates were higher, and I was just like, it felt a little inefficient at that point. But hopefully very soon we can then refi. I know, like I heard this saying, and it doesn't have anything to do with this, but you marry the house or you marry the deal, but you date the rate. So if that's something I loved it. I heard it the other day, and I keep saying,
Marry the house, date the rate.
Date the rate.
You can always get rid of the rate.
Question, so I know your brother is boots on the ground.
Yep.
So if somebody doesn't have, how important is that? How important was that? So I mean,
Yes.
I have clients who from time to time, they wanna buy wherever.
Mm-hmm.
There's no connection to the place, they're
Yep.
completely stuck, with whoever answers the phone when they call, and they don't have any resources. Like, has your brother being there, has that been clutch, or what?
Yes, very much so. Insurmountably.
Would you recommend it if you don't have somebody with boots on the ground?
I would, and because we're still looking at alternative markets, that's where I first got started, was Columbia, but right now we're looking to diversify anyways, just to get away from one singular location. And it's something I helped successfully do in my internship, was source some of those relationships. So like I said, I would probably go to I would either find the agent and or the mortgage broker. Like, find which one you want to work with first in that, after you identify an area, whatever the area that is that you want to then enter. I think there's a lot of understanding the markets and analyzing, making sure that's where you want to enter. And then when you do, you don't have to go with the agent that's on the Zillow. I mean, I think I would go through bigger pockets. There's a lot of real estate investing forums. I would highly, highly recommend an agent who invests themselves. And I cannot stress that enough. So bigger pockets, Yelp. That's how I found my CPA in South Carolina, because our LLCs in South Carolina was bigger pockets. He had known real estate investing. So any type of those forums, to find one person and then have them refer you to the other team, I think is how to kind of go about it. Now, there might be a little bit more legwork, maybe a trip down, a lot of phone interviews, but like that first, even, I think it's building the systems and processes early. So when you identify that market, you find your team and making sure that they are on lock and they are who you want to work with, and making sure that they're your team. And again, it's just managing kind of the managers. And I think we had a mortgage broker who wasn't so great. The deal still makes sense, and we still ended up doing it. We've had to switch people, and at the end of the day, it's trial and error. But even if it's in your own local market, there's going to be problems with people you kind of deal with. So if I was going somewhere else, find that person you want to deal with. Find through Bigger Pockets, Yelp. You can phone interview them. You can ask them a bunch of questions. If you don't like the answers you get to somebody else, continuously ask for referrals as well. And if you start to hear some commonalities in names, you've struck some gold. And so kind of hit on those two, but I think one of the biggest things for me, and like I said, who I wanted to speak to were those people who were just kind of starting to step out, was the power of one. So I was in an internship for a year before I jumped into this first deal, but I learned more in that 3-month time period of closing, flipping, and trying to get somebody in there than I did in the entire year of my internship. I truly believe that you just learn more, or I at least maybe do learn more from experiences. There are things that are going to pop up. That notary thing was never going to pop up in any YouTube video that I've watched thousands of, or any forum. I don't think any. Hey, not yet. We got to get a couple more, and then we'll start pumping out the YouTube videos, whatever we need. But no. And then so where we're going is we're continuing to go into South Carolina, different markets in South Carolina, a little bit expanding our reach, and how we're doing that is direct mail campaigns. I think it's something that we do some social media ads through the agency that does it, but I'm more trying to get, I think mail has been one of those that people got away from it because it was so overutilized, and now people are so saturated in social media that they forget about that physical touch and sending it to the actual property. That we've generated some good leads from it, and obviously that last house was a part of it, and we've also through those leads successfully helped other investors get into. And so what we do is we help them find the team. I mean, my brother's obviously the agent, but he's got the property manager. We've got a mortgage broker in town, and we've been helping other investors, especially from California, where my company is headquartered. And if you don't have $1 million in California, you're not buying a 3-bedroom house. And we've helped them get into South Carolina and just find a way to get some diversification and some cash flow.
How did you find your property manager?
Trial and error. So we went through the first one. We called around. I talked to a bunch of them. I have a list of questions that I kind of made from, again, searching through some of those resources and hearing some horror stories. What do you keep on reserves? How do you deal with evictions? How would you go about this if they say their faucet's a little leaky? How would you deal with that? Because obviously you want to be respectful, and if something's broken, of course get it fixed. But at the same time, people are a little quick to be like, hey, my AC's not working. Did you turn it on? Like, they're just quick to call. So I want to make sure I have somebody in place that's kind of, I don't want to say abrasive, but at the same time being like making sure that they're not just running out, because then I'm getting charged. It's their hour that they spent going out to that property to check the filters or what have you. So how I found the property manager was through Bigger Pockets. And then, so the first one we found was through a referral. They were okay. It didn't go the best. I don't know what they were charging for some of the charges. I was like, I'm not too familiar, and the quote we got to flip the property was too much. And then we switched to another one, and it's been going great so far. Anything you guys wish you heard or thought about?
For the construction stuff, was it through the property manager, or did your brother just know people,
Referrals. So the first construction loan had to be, so we had a contact who was not a licensed general contractor, who was a builder, but he was doing a lot of our work. Not the obviously the electrical stuff, but through the construction loan, they needed to make sure they were a licensed LLC, and that was when I think we were just trying to find someone at that moment. We went online, got the work done, did good work, but at the same time he was supposed to be commanding the troops, and he was just kind of letting it slip because they were obviously very busy, and during COVID, everyone was kind of going crazy.
What will make you choose single homes versus multifamilies down in South Carolina?
So, main reason, I could get a loan for it. Conventional at first, and that was 20% down as opposed to the 25, because that's what all I was getting qualified for. And if I went for multifamily, it was just going to be I didn't want to put 25% down at the time, but it's an area we're looking now, and we're making offers on multifamilies right now.
How's it not?
It's good. So we got a duplex. It's 1-1 each side, so efficiency units. 100 on market, 148,000, and each side will potentially rent out for 850 to 900.
How's your cold calling? What's your return on your cold calling so far?
Well, I mean, I'm in sales, so I cold call for my day job too. So about as good as that, not very good.
Yeah.
But we've through Upwork, we've got someone called on the list right now. So we're trying to just get away from myself doing it.
Yeah.
She set up a lead, 2 leads. Didn't pull through, but it's going. I mean, we just got to keep them going on the list, and whatever happens with it happens. Comes in, it's nice to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Good conjunction with the mailers too. You know?
Just getting multiple touches. I mean, and that's something I've seen even from my day job, whether some people like to respond to different things, some people like emails, some people like calls, some people like social media. So just making sure you're hitting them in different avenues. With mailers, to get my name known, our faces are on it. So just to kind of get known, and then when you're calling, it's not as cold chance, but it's still pretty cool. It's still pretty cool. All right, well, I think that's about it. Thank you, guys.
You guys want to take a quick break, grab something to eat, have a drink or so, get a refill?